let's be honest, we're all looking for it. Some sense of psychological peace in a world that just feels, well, increasingly chaotic. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful framework from an Islamic perspective that doesn't just diagnose our modern anxiety, but actually lays out a clear curriculum for finding true, deep, inner calm. I mean, that's kind of the question of our time, isn't it? We're just surrounded by noise, by pressure, and this endless pursuit of more. It really does feel like running on a treadmill, chasing a sense of peace that's always just a little bit out of reach. So, where does this widespread feeling of unease actually come from? Well, according to the framework we're exploring today, the problem isn't necessarily the world around us, but an imbalance within us. It suggests that all this anxiety we're feeling comes from focusing so heavily on our physical, material needs that we end up neglecting a really fundamental part of who we are. And to fix that imbalance, we have to start by understanding our own dual nature.
Okay, so this brings us to the foundational idea of the entire framework, this concept of human duality. Because, to find balance, you first have to understand what it is you're trying to balance in the first place.
This is the core idea of what's called takwin al-insan, or human composition. The concept is pretty straightforward but profound. A human being isn't just a body, and we're not just a soul. We are this intricate, amazing combination of both. A physical form made from the earth and a divine spirit that's been breathed into it. They're completely intertwined.
So here you can see the two sides of our nature laid out. On one hand, you have our physical body, described as being from madda mahina, or clay. And on the other, our soul, which is infused with ruh Allah, or God's spirit. Now, the most crucial point here is that these two parts are inseparable in life. What affects one deeply affects the other. You can't just treat a spiritual ache with a material solution, and you definitely can't ignore how a troubled soul impacts your physical health.
So, how do we actually manage this duality in our day-to-day lives? This verse from the Quran really gives us the guiding principle. It's such a clear instruction for finding harmony. Seek the hereafter, absolutely, but don't forget your share of this world. See, it's not about choosing one over the other, it's about mastering the balance between them. So, if balance is the goal, what's the key to actually getting there? Well, this framework offers a kind of surprising answer. And it starts by completely redefining a word we all think we know: freedom. Our modern idea of freedom is so often about having unlimited options, right? The ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. But this framework argues that true, deep psychological peace comes from a very, very different kind of liberty. And here it is, that central concept, Abdullah. Now, this translates to servant of God. And at first glance, servant and freedom seem like total opposites. I get it, but that's the paradox right at the heart of this idea. It suggests that true freedom is only found when you voluntarily dedicate yourself to a single higher purpose. Because in doing that, you liberate yourself from being a slave to everything else. And what are those other things we can become enslaved to? The framework points to these common culprits. And just think about it for a second. How many of us feel kind of chained to the need for more money, or to satisfying every little desire, or to maintaining a certain image, or to just meeting societal expectations? These attachments, it argues, are the real prisons that disturb our inner peace. This quote is so powerful because it gets right to the heart of the matter. It's a warning that when religious practices become just hollow formalities, they lose all their power. If the rituals are just empty actions without any intention or interchange, they become like a body without a soul, jasadun bila ruh. They can no longer serve their real purpose, which is to help us find that very freedom we've been talking about. Okay, so if rituals aren't supposed to be hollow formalities, what are they? This framework presents them as something incredibly practical, a deliberate training program, a curriculum designed specifically for cultivating the soul. Let's just run with this idea of a curriculum for a second. Think of the core acts of worship not as obligations, but as training camps. Each one is designed for Jihad al-Nafs, that great internal struggle against our own base desires, to train and discipline our inner state and ultimately create real, tangible behavioral change that leads to peace. And here's how that curriculum actually works in practice. It's not random. The daily prayer, al-Salah, isn't just a ritual. It's training in focus, time management, and humility. Fasting, al-Sawm, is this powerful way to practice self-discipline over our physical urges. The annual charity, al-Zakah, is direct training against materialism. It helps break our attachment to wealth. And the voluntary night prayer is seen as a direct line to tranquility. See the pattern? Each practice has a specific psychological target, a clear goal for the soul. So, after all this inner work, this balancing act, this redefinition of freedom, this spiritual training, where does it all lead? What's the ultimate state we're all striving for? The ultimate goal is a state known as al-Tuma'ninah wal-Sakinah. And this isn't just a fleeting moment of quiet, no, it's described as a deep, unshakable tranquility that settles right into the very core of your being. It is the ultimate reward for the soul's journey, the highest peak of psychological peace that this framework aims for. And that leaves us with a final, and I think a really powerful question to reflect on. If worship is a training camp for the soul, what are our daily lives training us for? With every habit, every goal, every choice we make, what state of being are we actually practicing for every single day? Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.